Hello everyone, in this video we're going to talk about pump data sheets. So at minimum, this following information and requirements must be specified in a pump data sheets. So you as the engineer working, let's say in a consulting company, you have to fill data sheets to request for a quotation. And in these data sheets, you must fill the following specifications, and we're going to go over each one of them. So you're going to have to fill in your service requirements, the liquid properties that you're using in a pump, any safety and environmental requirements, and we're going to look at that in detail just now. Also, any pump construction and features that you require, and operations, maintenance, and reliability requirements. So we're going to look into that. Now, if you don't give that information to the pump supplier, they're going to have to guess before they quote you, and they might give you good options, but you're going to have to review these options. Because, for instance, a pump manufacturer might supply you a motor, for instance, that is a standard motor. But if you're going to be running this pump inside a rated area, such as a Class 1 Div 2 area, let's say you have hydrogen in the room, and so that means you're going to need a rated motor. So that's one of the information or parts of the information that you could, and that is just some of the information that you could supply to the manufacturer so that they could make an informed decision. At the end of the day, the responsibility is on you as an engineer to review the quotation from the pump manufacturer before making a purchase. Now, I'm providing you with two different data sheets. One is the full detailed data sheet that you could use in your organization or in your capacity as an engineer to communicate with the pump manufacturer. This is the proper comprehensive version intended for specifying and confirming most, if not all, the technical and environmental requirements. I'm also giving you a short request for quotation data sheet, and this is just the concise minimal version. So let's say you don't have enough information or you want the supplier to be giving you recommendations, then you could leave all of these technical information out, and the supplier will give you different options that you're going to have to review anyways. So let's begin. In terms of service requirements, you need to provide the following information. You have to give the supplier your minimum, normal, and max operating conditions for the pump. So what are the minimum, maximum, and normal operating conditions for the flow rate, pressure, net positive suction head, available, and temperature? And it's important because the manufacturer should recommend a pump that is capable of meeting the maximum operating conditions while also accommodating a wide flow range, so it can also operate at your minimum required flow rate. Now, on a separate side note, if the pump cannot operate at your minimum required flow rate, then you might need to redesign your pumping system. So you might potentially have to put a recycle line in your piping to protect it, and this is generally to be discussed during good practice design. Now, with the net positive suction head available, the manufacturer needs to know that, because if he's going to make a recommendation for you for a pump, you need to make sure that the net positive suction head required for that pump is less than the net positive suction head available in your pumping system. And that's something that I discuss about in more detail in the pump sizing course. Now, with regards to the temperature, the manufacturer must ensure that the pump's operating and performance are not negatively affected by the operating temperature of your fluid. And that's something you need to tell the manufacturer. And also, the manufacturer can confirm that the materials of construction and seals are compatible with the full temperature range. Now, you also want to specify the control method, because the manufacturer can help select a pump curve that's suitable for the control method. So whether you're controlling the pump with a VFD or you're throttling a control valve, that's important, because if you're throttling a control valve, a steep pump curve is preferred to maintain control at low flow. And if you're controlling using VFD control, then a flatter curve is acceptable because the flow is adjusted by speed. And the manufacturer could also help select a motor and a VFD that are compatible. Intended mode of operation. So do you want to run this pump continuously? So do you need it to be an industrial type of pump that could continuously run 24/7? or do you want to run it intermittently if you're dosing something? Is it a standalone, or is it in series or in parallel? And essentially, the pump manufacturer will try to provide you with a pump that operates with minimal heat buildup and can reliably meet these service conditions. For the liquid properties, you really want to specify the fluid composition, because that is going to allow the pump manufacturer to help you with the right materials of construction. The solids percent, and whether or not it's a slurry, and what kind of solid particle size the pump will see, because then the manufacturer can provide you options of pumps that can deal with slurries or suspended solids. Physical properties, you want to give them the viscosity, density, vapor pressure, specific heat, boiling point, and etc. Especially for fluids that are not known, you want to give them this information, because then the manufacturer is going to provide you recommendations. So for instance, at high viscosity, they might recommend you a positive displacement pump if it's more suitable. In terms of hazards, the manufacturer, if is aware of that, can help provide you the right materials of construction. Again, the sealing options, because you want a seal option that doesn't perhaps leak, because if the fluid is very corrosive, that's something that you want to mention. And what are the explosion proofing risks? So if you have flammable materials, as I mentioned previously, that might require a different rating, for instance, on the electrical components. In terms of safety and environmental requirements, you want to make sure to let the pump manufacturer know any compliance and label requirements, and that could be code, government, or industry standards. So depending on where the pump is operated will determine what type of compliance requirements is needed. So for instance, in Canada, we need the CSA approval, and in the USA, it's the UL, and it's CE in Europe. And you also want to list any protection required for installation in a hazard-rated area. As I said, again, if you're operating with flammable material, then you need to rate the electrical components for, let's say, Class 1 Div 1 or Class 1 Div 2. You want to list if you have any requirements for guards, and guards usually help protect against injury. So instead of having somebody catching their hand inside the shaft that's rotating, having a guard can potentially prevent some of these injuries. Pump construction. So as I said, you want to mention the materials of construction that are suitable for your wet process. Also, you want to provide them the design limits, such as, let's say, the maximum impeller diameter. This helps you because it allows for future trimming of the impeller to adjust capacity without replacing the entire pump. Let's say you're operating with a reduced diameter impeller. This allows you, if in the future you need more pump capacity, you could change the impeller to a bigger impeller, and that will give you more capacity for the pump. You also want to make sure that you're running an efficient pump. So specifying a minimum efficiency ensures that you're getting a pump that is energy efficient and you're not operating in an inefficient part of the curve. You might also want to inform them that you don't want a pump that is running at very high speeds, because that prevents the use of high-speed motors that increase wear, vibration, or noise and reduce the equipment life. And you might also want to tell them about what the minimum flow requirements are, because any pump has a minimum flow, and below that minimum flow, the pump can overheat, cavitate, or suffer mechanical damage. And so you want to make sure that the minimum flow rate that you gave the manufacturer is still above the minimum low flow limit of the pump. And so the supplier, by seeing what your minimum flow rate is, will help select a pump that has a low flow limit below that. And as I said, if your operating range is very wide, then in that case, maybe the supplier cannot find you a pump that has such a low minimum flow and such a big high flow. And in that case, you might want to change your design to be able to accommodate for both cases given a single pump. You want to also indicate your preference for a shaft seal. So that is mainly for leakage control. The type of seal determines how much, if any, fluid leaks to the atmosphere. So for hazardous, flammable, or toxic liquids, you may need a double seal or a sealless pump to minimize or eliminate leaks completely. You also want to make sure that the seal material that's used is compatible with your process. and also for reliability and maintenance. So some seals, like packing, they're cheaper but require more maintenance and adjustment. Mechanical seals are more reliable and lower maintenance but costs more. Also, if you're operating at higher temperatures or abrasive slurries, they may require external flushing fluid or cooling systems to prevent any seal failure. It's important for you to specify that, because if you don't, the manufacturer just might recommend the simplest or the cheapest option, which may not meet the safety, environmental, or reliability requirements that you have for your application or your facility, let's say. Also, you want to specify if you need a casing drain, if applicable. So depending on where the pump will be operated and what kind of maintenance procedures you have, if you need to drain the pump casing, you might request a drain valve on the pump casing itself, which is similar to what is here in this picture. In terms of operations, maintenance, and reliability requirements, you want to specify the lubricants and the lubrication requirements, because some processes, such as in the food and pharma industries, they require food-grade lubricants, or for instance, if you have plant standards you need to follow, you can specify the bearing lubricants here. Also, you want to define your base plate requirements. So this ensures that it's compatible, the pump foundation, the pump frame is compatible with your building foundation layout, and if there's any anchoring method and space constraints, you want to communicate that with the pump supplier. Also, if containment or drainage is required. So if you can see here in the pictures, these are all frames, and you can put a spill containment underneath the pump if you have toxic fluid and if any leaks from that might etch on the ground or is harmful. And this also ensures that the pump and the motor, as you can see in this picture, they're properly aligned. Any misalignment will cause problems. And for corrosive or wet environments, you may need stainless steel or coated base plates instead of the standard carbon steel, and that's something you let the manufacturer know. And this is just a quick overview of the different sections you would typically find in a pump datasheet. So you can visit the link below to get access to the full detailed datasheet, the more comprehensive version, which is intended for specifying most, if not all, the technical and environmental requirements that we just talked about. And also there's going to be an area for notes where you could communicate other technical information or environmental requirements that were not mentioned. You can also get access to the short version datasheet for a request for a quotation, and this is the concise minimal version, just enough for the supplier to give you a quote, but leaving assumptions to them. In any case, you're going to have to review the quotation and all the specifications before making a purchase. And if you want to learn more about pump sizing, check out the link below, which has my pump sizing course. Anyways, without further ado, see you in the next video.